GT3 or Turbo S? This is a very common question and topic of conversation for Porsche people. In this video, we're going to share some of our personal opinions, and we're going to dive into the topic of these two very different cars.
Both cars fast as fuck, but you have to make a decision of which one you're taking home. See if you agree with me. GT cars all the way. Old men drive turbos. I have a question for Mr. Wes Howell. You have had 4 different cars in the last 2 years, and they've all been GT cars. Why?
At the very core of it, I really have a strong preference for a GT3 compared to like a turbo, which is a super popular car.
What did you start with? What was your first Porsche?
It was a red GT3 991.
What was your next Porsche?
Wasn't that one the 991 Turbo S?
Yeah.
It was beautiful spec. It had everything. It was a gorgeous black car, and I put some beautiful wheels on it. It was a really fun car.
And then you went to?
I went back to a GT3.
And then you went to?
I think it was a touring GT3. And then
I can't even keep track.
Yeah, and then it was a GT3 RS,
right? Which
I sold for a stupid reason.
A 991.2.
Yeah, it was a 0.2 Visoc.
Mm-hmm.
People pronounce that a million different ways. Miami Blue.
And then you went from that to what you have now,
which is a 0.2 Voodoo Blue non-RS. So I bounced around a little bit. But
you've had all GT cars for your last 4 cars within 2 years, or 2 or 3 years.
I had 5 991s, as ridiculous as that
5,
sounds, and
okay.
4 of them were GT3s. And yeah, so for me, like the purest driving experience of a GT3 was just resonated with me like a million times more than the turbo. The turbo was fast and it had torque and it launched off the gate like crazy. It was an amazing car, beautiful car. But the chassis was different. The way you felt the weight of the car was different. The way the motor made power was different. Even the way the PDK shifted and drove was completely different than the PDK in a GT3.
You said in the turbo?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like if you take it around a few corners, the chassis is so tight on a GT3, and you're tucked into a carbon bucket, so you can just you're connected to the frame. And you got this, 9,000 RPM motor screaming in your ear that you have to be, pushing it hard. You have to be revving it in order to make the power. In a turbo, it doesn't matter. You just push the gas, and no matter what, you're going to have tons of torque, and what gear you're in doesn't matter nearly as much. And you have PDCC, those automatic dampers, because they weigh about 500 pounds more. It kind of tries to offset the weight, and you feel that when you're pushing it through a corner. So for some people, like for me, I wanted almost like a race car for the street. Mm-hmm. And I wanted that feeling. And the turbo's not that to me. To others, they don't care. They want a better daily. They're not really so focused on all the things I just mentioned. And so they're like, you're crazy. And some people just love the turbo and think I'm nuts. But that's why there's 2 separate cars. And that's why you could make an argument you'd want both of them in your garage.
Right. You could make that argument, even though so many people have, and not many people. I'm sure there are a lot of people on Earth that have that, but most people are either in the GT car camp or the turbo camp, just for those reasons. It's like you want to mash it and go really fast. Sure, the turbo is going to be the better option if that's what you want. If you want to do freeway poles and beat people and say how fast your car is in a straight line, then definitely the turbo is going to be the way to go, because the GT3 is not going to be the car that's going to do that to people. It's not going to leave people in the dust in a straight line. That's just not what it's designed for.
And at the same time, though, when you look at how well the launch works and how well the traction control works, you look like the 0.2 RS, and the 0 to 60 in that car is still 2.9 seconds. So comparing it to the new turbo, that's much slower, but it's still crazy how capable it is even from a launch. I've always also compared a 2-stroke to a 4-stroke. If anybody's ever ridden motorcycles, 4-strokes all torque, but the 2-stroke was just louder, the noises it makes. You had to, people I think still have a soft spot in their heart for 2-stroke motorcycles. I've always thought of the GT3 as the 2-stroke.
People that like to mix gas and oil.
Yeah.
But so recently you've pondered the idea, and you've said it to me. You're like, I want to try something new. And you've pondered a McLaren or you've pondered a Lamborghini, but I also feel like maybe you pondered this this last GT purchase, but you still went back to the GT?
So I'm a one sports car kind of guy. And it's hard for me to find another sports car that ticks all the same boxes of a GT3. It's the practicality of it, the expense of it, the resale value, the serviceability of it, the driving experience I described.
Right. So some would laugh to say you've bought in 5 of the same cars, or 4, let's say, non-turbo. But you bought in 4 of the same cars over, and just different colors, maybe different model years. But they're all GT cars, even going, I guess, from high RS to back to a GT3. But you still go back to the... And I don't think it's funny. I understand it because I know how much I like Porsche. But I think from others' perspective would be like, why would you buy 5 of the same cars?
Usually most guys get the itch. I would say after 6 months. Some guys stretch it out to like 2 years. I'm going to keep a car for 2 years. For me, it was usually 6 to 9 months, and then you start thinking, I'm going to dump this car. I can't think of one sports car I've ever owned after that 6 to 9 months that I would want to buy the same car again. Not one. And yet the GT3 is like a no-brainer, and I still love that car. I'm still excited, like to go rally it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you might get used to it, but if you take a break for a month, it's like, oh my gosh, nothing else does this. The startup, the revs, everything, right? I think you have very little interest in a turbo.
Definitely not.
You don't have much of an interest in a
none.
turbo.
Old men drive turbos.
So it's hard to, it's an interesting question because sometimes it's hard to explain it. But for the people that are GT car drivers, they are 100% GT car drivers. You're never going to change their mind.